I think what I'm presenting this afternoon may be sort of more on the practical level. I might even be accused of talking more common sense than anything else, but I hope that I've thrown enough suggestions into the next 10 minutes that there's a takeaway for each of you. It's something that I really feel passionate about, that for the moments, the minutes, the hours that we have children in front of us each day, we really do have a duty to make every one of those moments count. As a secondary teacher moving into primary, one of the things that struck me and maybe flew in the face of what I was hearing a lot was just how much time you have with a group of children. After a decade teaching in these neatly chopped up hour chunks, suddenly I had a group of 30 children in front of me for an entire day. And for a short while, it felt like it was a sort of a luxury, all of this time. Over a period, I realized that there was a completely different challenge there. And that actually, with all of this time, supposedly within a day, it's really easy to end up letting some of it slip through your fingers. So it's something I'm really conscious of now, and that I really want to stay focused on as I go through into this year ahead. I always love to throw a quote into anything that I do, and this seems like the perfect quote. A reminder from Benjamin Franklin that lost time is never found again. We've talked a lot about lost time in the last few months and lost learning. And whilst I don't want us to get into that debate, I do feel that actually, if we're inviting children back after such a long period of time, and at a time where there's just so much anxiety about being back in school, we really do owe it to children this year more than ever to give them the most valuable school experience we can. I asked the Edu Twitter community recently what they felt were the lost moments in a school day, and the suggestions I got back for pupils, it was those moments where they're coming into the classroom, where we have to register our class. It's those transitions between lessons, getting the kids back in from break, from lunchtime, the end of tasks, and then what we do to make the most of the end of the day. And then there were also suggestions about our own lost moments in the day, those break times, lunch times, and after school where time can slip away from us. So I tried to cover at least some of that. And before I go into what I feel are those sort of different kinds of moments that we might lose if we're not conscious of them, I just want to encourage everyone to just ask, how much do we value those individual moments within our day, within our week, within our year? Because they really do add up. I spent some time doing this, looking at the 5 minutes here or there, the 2 minutes in between these lessons, and how much it all adds up over the course of a week and a term. We're talking in hours, and these hours are really precious. So how can we maybe maximize that, particularly this year, rather than where some of the dialogue this year is going towards, we need to spend more time on English and maths, and there's this danger of narrowing our curriculum. How about we just make the most of the moments that we do have? And if we can do that, do we really need to narrow anything? I also feel that when you're in a room with a class, the less time you waste or you lose, the more time you have to connect with that class and be present in the moment. So I've tried to categorize these potential lost moments into 4 categories. What I call the hit the ground running moments, the what nexts for pupils, those transitions, and then the unexpected time that we might find within the day. So hitting the ground running. I really would encourage everyone to consider what they do before children come into the classroom. What's ready for them when they enter? What's on the desk? What's on the whiteboard? What's on the projector screen? And have we tailored those activities, the first things that our children come into, so that they don't need much explanation, so that every learner that walks through the door can get straight on, or if not everyone, then the vast majority. How long an activity is that? Does it take long enough that you can do what you really want to do in those first few minutes of a lesson, which is really just connect and start engaging with pupils? What kinds of entry tasks do you have for your classes when they enter your classroom? Some suggestions, some things that I like to use. If we're well into a unit of work, a quick quiz up on the board or on the table can work really well. Often I get them to just jot it down on a mini whiteboard or on the desks themselves with a whiteboard pen. Quick practice in some of the foundational skills in maths, in grammar, in spelling, ready to go, so that there's no explanation needed. It could be handwriting ready, books out on the desks, or it might be a listening task, which as a musician I particularly enjoy, having a piece of music playing and a question up, so that everybody has this expectation that when they walk into your classroom, the learning starts immediately. I think in a year where we're going to do an awful lot of come in and wash your hands, having tasks that can start before the pupils actually reach the desks might be more valuable. So a question on the board to consider, a piece of music playing. I know that I'll be using a lot of that this term to engage children as they come into my classroom. I do feel that if we can give children independent activities at the start of the day in particular, we give ourselves more time to connect. There was a lot of discussion around my earlier post on this, about the beginning of the day and the value of greeting pupils. And actually, if we can give them something meaningful to do from the very first second, and we don't need to set that up and we don't need to explain it, then we're present in the moment. We can really engage with our children one-on-one. We can have those important conversations that we might need to have. So be organised to be present with your children. So what next activities? The first category then was the whole class. But let's think about individual pupils at those moments in a lesson where they have finished, or maybe they think they've finished. What have we got ready and prepared ahead of time so that we don't waste those moments for children who either think they've finished or have finished a task? Have we created the kind of routines in our classroom where finished just means the step before self-checking or editing a piece of work, going through a set routine to be able to confidently say, I have finished this piece of work? A great practical thing that I'm going to put some ideas up for on the Padlet very soon are having challenge boxes or folders, something that a pupil can access independently when they're finished with a piece of work, and that they can pull out a challenge relevant to the lesson. It might be a root word, and then how many suffixes can you add? How many prefixes can you add to this word? It might be a fill in the blank where you've got an ascender at the beginning of a word, a descender at the end, 2 letters in between. How many words can you make? Can we set up activities that we continue to go back to throughout a week or a half term? So things that pupils are specifically practicing. It might be a handwriting skill. It might be pencil sketching in a sketchbook. If we have activities that are set up that we've committed to practicing regularly throughout a half term, then they can be reached for in those moments. This is a relatively new idea in my own thinking around what we can do to make the most of moments, but can we set up personal projects for our pupils that they can reach for in those moments, things that they perhaps researching that they've chosen themselves around a topic that they can go back to and continue work on to present maybe at the end of a half term. One thing I like to ask pupils when they say they're finished is show how you know. Can you give me an example? Can you draw me a picture, a diagram, a flow chart, a mind map to demonstrate that you now know what it is that we've been learning? And a shout out to the value of reading in your classroom. If you've got a really good class library that changes with your topics, being able to direct your pupils to go and find out more, to go beyond the lesson, is really valuable. I was reflecting on this a little more whilst I was listening to Kim speak earlier about play in the early years, and I found it particularly striking that actually our early years learners are often far better at just finding the next thing to do. They're used to that continuous provision, and I wonder what that can look like further up the school, keeping and maintaining that independence that we teach our children in the early years. So any resource that I make for these sort of what next challenges, I have 4 golden rules. I always say that my resources have to take less time to create than the pupils will take to use them. I always want them to be reusable and adaptable, so laminated sheets where I can scrub off what was on there before and adapt it for the next week. I always want to store my resources so that they're there the next time we want them, and I like to keep them simple and distraction free. So I thought I'd just share those golden rules for everyone. I'm going to blast through my last 2 transition activities. I'll encourage you to come up with as many different chants and songs that you can teach your classes for those moments where we're washing hands or getting from point A to point B, coming out of the classroom, going into the classroom, whether it be counting, times table practice, mnemonics that you've got for learning some of your topic knowledge, repeating your classroom motto, mantra, whatever it might be, call and response between the teacher and the pupils, giving children something to listen to while they're tidying up, whether it be you reading a story, playing music, again, challenging them to remember 10 of whatever it is you're learning. And for those unexpected moments where we find 5 minutes of time that we didn't know we had, I would say your class book is a faithful friend. Always have it there to reach for. There are so many moments beyond that 15 minutes that I expect every teacher to be reading each day where we could reach for that book and just sneak an extra 5 minutes. Take a walk, leave your classroom if you've got 5-10 minutes. Go off around the grounds, use your senses, encourage your children to explore. Have a question box. Those questions, those bigger questions that your children might ask in the week, file them away. And if you've got 5 minutes, then pull a question from the box and see if you can answer one of those big questions that you put to one side so they don't derail a well-crafted lesson. Again, listen to music with a purpose, ask a question, get them to draw a picture based on what they hear. Maybe the last suggestion is a contentious one, but take a break. There are those moments where actually the best thing you can give your class are just a couple of minutes of downtime, head on the desk to take stock. So how do we make the most of every moment in our classrooms? We have to be organised. We want things there ready so we can be present in the moment with our classes. We want to establish the routines for every situation, including those gaps in between. We want a classroom culture where time is valued, where every pupil is looking for the next thing to do, and where your classroom clock is in constant view so you can remind yourself that time is valuable. And once we've lost it, we can't get it back. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to hand back over to Tori.